Hey guys, Amarathi here, and I'm back with another build. This build can be played on either the Sorcerer or Spellblade. At the moment I think it's a little bit better on the Sorcerer, but I have managed to push well past Arena 150 on both of them. There may be a few slight variances, but I think at the moment with the current meta to Ward, the Sorceress is much better. How the build works is you're going to have a lot of attack speed, and you're going to be casting your Mana Strike very fast. And what that's going to do is through the Runesap node and one of your passives within the Spellblade tree is you're going to convert all those attacks into increased spell damage. That spell damage is then going to be benefited by your Mana Strike applying static charge, and finally you're going to also be applying a lot of shock stacks through both your static charge and your Mana Strike hits. On top of that, I'm also running the Static Charge and Lightning Blast combo with Convergence, and that's going to help with your single target damage by once again applying a lot of lightning hits or lightning spell hits. So it's going to be doing huge damage with each tick of lightning and applying more stacks of shock. Absolutely ripping the enemy's elemental protection and stun avoidance, so you can quite easily stun and do huge ticks of lightning. I've seen lightning blasts in Convergence crit up to about 3.5k. If you can imagine, you're doing about 9 of those every second. Yeah, that's a lot of damage, and that'll help you kill big enemies like fire golems and marina ogres. I've killed a 150 fire golem in under 10 seconds with this build. Alright, let's get into the build. As I said, your main bread and butter skill is going to be Mana Strike, and you're going to be picking up 1 point in Mana Spark, 4 points in Spark Charges, and here's where a lot of your pack damage is coming from, as well as your single target damage. As well as that, you're going to go 4 points into Swift Sap, 2 points into Rage Sap, 3 points into Rune Sap, 1 point into Teleporting Strikes, 5 points into Sprite Blade. You can take 1 point out of either Rune Sap or Sprite Blade and put it into Swift Sap. However, I really like the 5 points into Sprite Blade. I think it's probably the most reliable one. And I don't actually like Star Guide that much. I think you can do a lot more without it. And considering I am missing a point and it's quite hard to go between these 3 points, I found that this is the best combination so far. On to Enchant Weapon. So this is going to be there to mainly get you a lot of attack speed. So you're running Celerity and Concentration. You don't do too much melee damage. I have set this build up with 2 points in Fulminate, 5 points in Thundering, and 3 points in Draw Power. You can go for more melee damage through like Molten Steel, etc. I don't find it that worth it. You can look at going Zap as well, but I find Zap has a very low base at the moment. Ideally, what you want to be going for is Icicle Strike and To the Bone, but this is currently bugged and not benefiting from Spell Power. I have reported this bug, and hopefully it should be fixed, and then that will be the better choice when that patch comes through. Now, if you're running Sorceress, you'll be running Flame Ward. The goal of Flame Ward on the Sorceress is mainly to auto cast this one, so you're using it a lot less reactively and you want to numb lock it. The reason is because you have a lot of cooldown reduction, so you can cast it quite low. You can see I've got 11.2 cast time there for a 4-second duration, and I am really just focused on trying to get like this as much up as possible and build myself a very healthy ward baseline rather than anticipate damage coming in. So I've got the 5 points in Stalwart Defense, 5 points in Barrier, 2 points in Prismatic Buffer, but this can go anywhere, 3 points in Energize, 2 points in Recollection, 3 points in Dilation. You can also go for the Infusion Lightning Ward route to get some lightning damage, but I don't think that's worth it, and I don't really rate going for the extra charges on this build. I think it's just much better to be casting this automatically. Shrewd Shielding, and if you could go for Mental Aegis, that might also be another good option there because you are running this on your gear as well. Finally, I am running the Static Charge and Lightning Blast combo. So for Static Charge, I am running 5 points in Reverberation, 3 points in Fulminating Blows, 1 point in Overload, 5 points in Diode and 1 point in Unlimited Power. I do not take any points in Unstable. I don't really find it worth it. The point of this is to do single target damage, and for that, I'm not focused on hitting extra enemies. I can do pack damage like enough with Mana Striker. That's never really a threat. So I just want to kill those big enemies, which is why I don't recommend taking any extra points in Unstable. I'm not just going 4 points in Overcharge and 1 point in High Voltage, just to keep the stacks as high as possible. You're never really casting static. The point is to just use the Unlimited Power node to cast Lightning Blast as much as possible with Overload. So once you're over 80 charges, you're just going to cast one every second. For Lightning Blast, here's the setup I've got. You'll notice I'm not running the Overcharge and Hypercharge nodes. That's because I'm fairly confident that they're not working. It's very hard to test this build, but because you're not actually casting Lightning Blast, it's not registering the double cast, and it's quite similar to what we see with Fireballs proc from Flame Reaver and the Embers node. If you've tried that combination before, it doesn't register that the player is casting it, so I haven't seen the double cast. If you know that this works, please let me know. But from my initial testing, it doesn't seem to be working. 3 points in Storm Razor, 2 points in Lightning Attunement, 4 points in Chain Lightning, 1 point in Convergence, 4 points in Arcing Power, 2 points in Crackling Speed, 3 points in Shatter Shock for huge amounts of damage there, and then I've got 1 point in Blinding Light. You can also put that 1 point into Volatile Lightning if you wish. If you are running the Spellblade version, you'll just go for Ice Ward over Flame Ward. Take all the block nodes, take the extra armor, take the extra ward retention. For passives, keep in mind I'm level 90 at the moment, so I've got 10 extra points to spend, so I'll just show you where I can spend them. I got 8 points in Arcanist, 2 points in Elementalist, 5 points in Mage Flurry, 5 points in Knowledge Destruction. Put your extra 5 points there to take that up to 10. In the Sorceress Tree, 8 points in Calculated Destruction, 8 points in Mana Shell, 5 points in Wisdom, 4 points in Whirling Snow, 8 points in Crackling Precision, 1 point in Arcane Insight, 2 points in Chronomancy, put an extra 4 points there, or 4 points there, and 1 point into Arcane Avalanche. 5 points in Distant Spark. This one is a little bit laggy though, so you may want to put points elsewhere if you don't have the best computer. Elemental Ascendance, 8 points, 8 points into Arcane Current, so that helps with the increased shock effect. 4 points into Recollection, 5 points into Archmage. For Spellblade, we do need 20 points in here to get static. So 8 points in Elemental Affinity, 5 points in Arcane Warden, 2 points in Glacial Might, and importantly, 5 points in Spellweaver. So that's kind of what the build is based around. So every attack is going to give you 20% spell damage. And then if we look at the Runesap node here, that does say 15%, but it's actually only 4% per, so 12% at 3 out of 3 for every enemy you hit. So they are slightly different. This one works really well with AoE packs, whereas the other one you can just cast. Even if you're not hitting, you can see that it's going up quite fast. And then if I start hitting the training dummy, you can see that increased spell damage comfortably climbing to around 600%. If you start hitting AoE packs, you can go up to about 1200. And that's going to work really well with, your State Charge, your Lightning Blast, etc. And then hopefully your Icicle Strikes. For the Spellblade, you want 8 points in Elementalist, 5 points in Mage Flurry, 8 points in Arcanist, 1 point in Reactive Ward, 4 points in Warden. These are your last points, so don't worry about them too much if you're not 100. 5 points in Mana Shell, 10 points in Wisdom, 2 points in Whirling Snow. If you're not running Wing Guards, you can actually go more into the Calculated Destruction as well as the Knowledge of Destruction, but I prefer Wing Guards on the Spellblade variant of this. Within the Spellblade tree, you want 5 points in Arcane Warden, 8 points in Elemental Affinity, 10 points in Glacial Might, 5 points in Spellweaver, 8 points in Prismatic Blade, 8 points in Combat Mage. If you don't have 100% Crit Strike Affordance, go for 5 points in Shiver Armor, 15 points in Triple Strike, 5 points in Mind Slayer, and 5 points in Mind Flame. For gear, you will want the Stormtide Legendary Boots. This is going to basically be your main source of damage because of the increased shock effect and chance to shock on lightning hit. So you want a very high roll for this. You don't need any other uniques, however, some do work quite well in the build, and it depends on your defensive setup. So you can see I'm running the Orion's Eye because it's very strong at the moment, with protection, so I focus more on the elemental protections as well as necrotic and poison. You can go one step further and even run the Sunforged Great Helm to take some of that necrotic and poison out, or the Ashen Crown, so you don't have to focus on armor as much. It depends on what's available for you. You will want a Divine Scepter, and you want a high increased melee attack speed roll, and you want spell damage as well. Other than that, you're just focusing more on your protections. For your chest and helmet, these are pretty important items. So for chest and helmet, you want the damage dealt to mana before health. Because you have an infinite source of mana, thanks to Mana Ward, you'll never run out of this, and this does a lot to reduce the incoming damage. You also want increased cooldown recovery speed to keep your Flame Ward and your enchant weapon uptime as high as possible. I am running a shield as well, just for further damage reduction aspects. You can run either the Unread Scroll or the Bloodrest Aegis. However, I don't feel damage is the factor that stops this build for climbing high. You still want to focus as much as defense as possible. For rings, just focus on your Glancing Blow and your set elemental if you can. Same with your relic, protections as your suffixes. For your belts, you want a dodge rating on potion use. You can also run Viper Ward. You can also run Chains of Valorous if you have a high amount of dodge. Really, it's up to you to analyze your own gear and kind of make the best defensive setups. I think protection is the best way to go at the moment, because you will get a lot of ward on hit thanks to your idols. Sorry, I'll finish up the gloves. You want the melee attack speed there. And looking at some critical strike avoidance is pretty good as well. So for the idols, you do want ward gain on melee hit, and you also want potion health converted to ward, because that gives you a big burst of ward when you need it, and I think that's very valuable in this build, just making sure that you're always at a high amount of health, so you can just kind of wail on enemies without too much hassle. Just some other options, you may also want to run Prism Wraps, and you can get some leech there, so if you do go the health route and protections route even more and not worry about the ward on hits, you can get a huge amount of leech because you're critting quite a lot. The other one you'll want is your wing guards. If you want to go for a critless build, I recommend this on the Spellblade. Just focus on your melee attack speed and your dodge. You can see that wing guards provides a lot of that, and that synergizes well with the Viper Tail. Well, there you go, guys. If you have any further questions, you can reach out to me on Discord or the Last Epoch forums, or leave a comment below. Appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.